Hello everybody, Wannabe Reviewer here, and welcome back to the Wannabe Podcast, episode 17. Now, if anyone caught last week's podcast, I took a bit at the beginning of last week's podcast to discuss how I not only want to have the Wannabe Podcast on YouTube, but I'm trying to put it on other platforms as well. So I've already begun the process of uploading it to this SoundCloud, Google Play Music, Stitcher, platforms like that. So yeah, I just want to throw it out there that if there's any of you who listen to this podcast on YouTube, you can also try and check me out on one of those platforms. So should be easy to find me. All you should have to do is look up the Wannabe Podcast, and there you go. Same content, only difference is that, you won't get the, visuals you might get on YouTube, that sort of thing. But besides that, it should be the same content with the timestamps and everything. So yeah, I just wanted to share that really quick. I know I'm behind in uploading those to the other platforms. I mean, it takes a while to convert the files, upload them, that sort of thing, and I've been really busy. But yeah, if you want to go check out the podcast on, as I said, one of those platforms, then feel free to do so, There you go. With that being said, I have quite a few things that I did this week, so I guess I'll get started with that. As always, I want to start with manga that I've read, and this week I did in fact read a new one. So there's this manga that I have heard about a lot on the anime memes subreddit. Basically on the anime memes subreddit, there's this little doodle of a character that they seem to worship over there. And they're always making jokes about it and references to it, this and that. And so I wanted to know what this manga was because it seemed interesting based on the little pictures. And so I did some research, and that led me to the manga that I read this week, which is Komi Can't Communicate. And Komi Can't Communicate is a school/comedy, slice of life, type of manga. And it follows this girl named Komi-san. And Komi-san, it's funny because on the outside, she's really good looking. She's very proper, or so she seems. When people see her walking around, she just radiates beauty and she's really refined, and she doesn't really talk to people, and people, always think it's because she's very proper and, very maybe I don't know, maybe she's too rich or, whatever, to really just engage with people, right? Maybe they feel that maybe they're not worth her time. And what's funny is that one of her classmates discovers that it's not that she's prim and proper and that she feels that people aren't worth her time. The reason she seems to act like this, very cold and glaring at everybody and stuff, is because she's extremely shy. And so as the title states, she doesn't know how to communicate with people. And so, yeah, I read about 15 chapters of it, and it's just this very entertaining, very funny manga about this girl that seems like she got, her life together, but she's just so shy and can't communicate with people. And it's funny because it skips around between showing her, she's drawn one moment very, beautiful and very elegant. And then it skips to her having all these really chibi over-the-top expressions, if you're looking at the thumbnail right now, you'll see she's right in the middle. And that's one of her expressions where she just has these big eyes and she just looks so lost and she's just radiating, nervousness and stuff. And so, yeah, it's just a really entertaining manga. And basically the point of it is that this schoolmate, he becomes basically her first friend because he kind of discovers her secret, and he promises that he'll help her open up, and her goal is to make 100 friends before she graduates. And so he says that she'll, help her with that. And so the manga, I think last time I had seen, I think it's up to at least chapter 178, maybe even more. And, I had gotten to chapter 15, and, you see about her being nervous, you see about her meeting this guy, you see about him trying to help her open up to other people, including a childhood friend of his, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's just a very easy read, very funny. Seeing her expressions and, the way they draw her is just really entertaining. And I recommend it, if you're just looking for a nice, easy read, but that has funny moments, then there you go. And once again, it's called Komi Can't Communicate. Moving on to anime, I watched quite a few anime. There's some that I watched that I already talked about, such as Mob Psycho 100 Season 2 and Boogie Pop and others, stuff like that I'm not going to talk about, because I feel like I've mentioned it enough. However, there is some that I watched last week and discussed last week that I just want to talk about again, and I promise this is the last time I'll discuss them. So, continuing with the Promised Neverland, that anime continues to be great. I think it might be the contender for, anime of the season, based on what I've seen so far. Episode 3 is the last episode I saw, and basically, I had mentioned before that where it left off was where a baby gets introduced into the orphanage, as well as, an assistant, nanny. And yeah, this episode was basically about Emma trying to see what it is that, how is the mom keeping track on them? Do they have some sort of tracking device on them that would be more visible on the baby than on them? And it's funny because I had a theory that maybe the baby would help them come to a realization of how they're getting tracked. I actually wrote that in the comments when I was talking to one of my subscribers, Teeny Leaf. Well, she always loves, talking about shows, going in depth. And I said I had a theory that, maybe they'll use the baby to try to discover, how they're getting tracked or whatever. And yeah, I'm not going to spoil what it is, but basically Emma is inspecting the baby, and she thinks she realized what it is they're being tracked with. So that was interesting. And then the rest of the episode was them basically trying to train the other kids to be faster and stronger and use their brains more for when the escape happens. And they're doing it under the disguise of them playing tag. So that was really interesting. And what's interesting too is that they introduced that assistant to the mom. And she's this lady that she's really unhinged. And basically she has her own objectives, she has her own agenda. And so that was really interesting because I just thought that right off the bat, she would team up with the mom and it would be, 2 against all the kids or whatever. And while I'm not saying that she's not going to be an antagonist, it is very interesting how she has her own agenda. And she's super unhinged and crazy. And you can see that she kind of wants to usurp the mom and all sorts of weird stuff. And so, yeah, it's actually really funny because as the kids are training by playing hide and seek to try to get better at hiding and escaping and stuff, she begins playing with the kids to try to get on their good side and to keep an eye on them. And it's funny because by doing that, she's actually helping them get better. So I thought that was really, an interesting angle for the anime to take. And yeah, once again, very good episode. I enjoyed, everything that they showed. Not to spoil it, but it seems like there might be a traitor in the group of kids. I mean, I don't know if they kind of show who it might be, but I think honestly it might be a red herring. Maybe, that's just to throw us off. I'm not sure. But it looks like there might be a traitor in the group of kids. And if so, I'm really interested to see where that goes. Because if there is a traitor, how does that work in terms of Emma, Ray, and Norman wanting to escape with all the kids? I mean, do they leave the traitor behind, or do they try to, outsmart the traitor so that the traitor thinks that they're not up to something after all? I mean, how will that work? I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of hard to talk about without spoiling it. I don't want to get into all the details, but so far this anime has been really exciting, and seeing how these kids just have all these plans and they're adapting to everything that's happening in the world around them and everything as they plan their escape. It's really interesting. And yeah, so we'll see where that goes, I guess. But, I continue to recommend it. And like I said, this is probably the last week I'm going to talk about it because, I don't know, it's the kind of thing that I think you guys should watch yourselves. So, another anime that I want to talk about, even though I talked about it before, was My Roommate is a Cat. And there's not really much else to say about it that I didn't say before. It continues to be really cute, really continues to be really interesting, the way they show the protagonist's perspective, and then they show the cat's perspective, and how the two kind of, are bonding closer. This episode was really good because you can tell the guy's bonding with the cat, which, that's nice. But in this episode, he kind of learned to open up and realize that other people have feelings too, which I thought was really interesting. He's growing as a person. He has a lot of moments remembering his parents, before they died, before they took that last trip where they got into that bus crash. And he's remembering, how he turned them down because they wanted to go on a trip. And he thinks about how, he always used to turn them down because he just loves being alone. And for him, being alone in his room reading a book is what makes him happy. And by the end, he kind of realizes how, he realizes to not be so selfish because he thinks about his family and how they were probably so sad that he never paid attention to them and that sort of stuff. And without getting too into it, I just thought it was a really good episode and I continue to recommend this anime. I think it's really good, has a really interesting premise. I mean, I've never seen anything like this where you see the perspective of like an owner and like an animal and, how they relate to each other and how they each have like different things going on. Never seen that before, but I just really enjoy it. And so up until now, I recommend it. Finally, the last anime that I talked about before that I want to talk about, for the last time is Kaguya-sama Love is War. For anyone who listened to me last week, that's the one about the two geniuses that they each really like each other, but they don't want to admit it because they feel like whoever confesses their love first, basically, like, that's a sign of weakness. And so this second episode was really good. The art style kind of changed. And it was kind of weird because at the beginning they did like a whole recap of the first episode, which was weird. But apparently that's because when the manga was being made, I think there's like this thing where they changed publishers or something. And so they kind of kept that as a gag in the anime. But anyway, that aside, there's the series looks a little bit different, but it's not that big of a deal. And yeah, it was just more fun shenanigans with the two geniuses trying to outsmart each other. And it continues to be a really funny show. I continue to recommend it. I think that even though the premise is kind of silly with these two just being so stubborn and not saying they like each other, the way the show runs is really enjoyable. And there's just all these things that pop up that are really funny. And there's like the secretary that's also in the student council with them. And she's a really awesome character. She's really funny. She's like really ditzy and stuff. And she kind of gets in the way of their plans, And so I really enjoy that. And yeah, I mean, it's supposed to run for 12 episodes. And so far I'm really enjoying it. So, I continue to recommend that as well. When it comes to a new anime that I watched and that I wanted to talk about, I watched this anime called The Quintessential Quintuplets. And yeah, what's really weird is that it's a harem anime. However, it doesn't follow the usual tropes of other harem animes. Basically, The Quintessential Quintuplets is this series about this guy that he's really smart. He always gets really good grades. He always gets 100 on his tests, that sort of thing. But he is, number one, very poor. His family is struggling with debt. So he's always being very stingy about, the food he gets at the cafeteria and stuff like that. And number two, he's also, he doesn't have the best personality. He doesn't really like talking to people. He's very, he likes to just be by himself, studying, that sort of thing. I don't know if it kind of has to do with the poor thing, back and forth, whatever. But at the beginning of the series, we meet the protagonist. And yeah, he's really good at studying, but he's really poor. And so when he's told about this tutoring job that's going to pay 5 times the, regular amount, he jumps right on board because he wants to help his family pay their debts. And since he's, really smart, he figures that it'll be a cinch, to help this person with their tutoring, blah, blah, blah. And what ends up happening is that he ends up discovering that the rich family who's paying him to do the tutoring, it's not for their one daughter, it's for their 5 daughters because they have quintuplets, which is where the, title comes in. And unfortunately, earlier that day or the day before, he met one of them and he accidentally got on her bad side because, he doesn't want to be left alone. And so now that he's her tutor as well as her sisters, none of the girls really like him. And so none of them want him to tutor them. And not only that, but they're all really lazy and hate to study. So, that's where the drama comes in. He has to figure out, number one, how to get on these girls' good side. And number two, how to motivate them to study because they all hate studying. And where the harem aspect comes in is that right at the beginning, we get this scene from the future where we see the main character asleep at he's in front of a mirror, he's asleep, he just got dressed up, he's in a tuxedo, and he's told that his bride is ready because he's, going to head off to his wedding. And we see that he's going to get married to one of the 5 girls. The thing is, though, we don't know who he's going to marry. And so that's what makes it really interesting, that as he's growing closer to these girls, as he's trying to tutor them, this and that, you kind of see that some of them start falling for him, that sort of thing. He kind of starts falling for them, I guess. I mean, I've only seen like 2 episodes, so I'm not entirely sure. But that's where like the harem aspect comes in, or these girls that start getting attached to him, start falling in love with him. And of course, we know that he's going to have to pick one of them, because we know from that like future scene that he is getting married to one of them. And yeah, so as a harem anime, it's really interesting because it doesn't fall into the usual, tropes of a bunch of like fan service, and, it doesn't fall into the usual trope of, I don't know, a bunch of like ecchi, like boob grabs, and the girls are mad at him and they're always hurting him, and all that dumb stuff that a lot of ecchi anime does. It doesn't fall into those tropes. Instead, while it is tropey, it's a very down-to-earth series about this guy trying to get closer to these sisters, and these sisters opening up to him in exchange as they, learn to accept him as a tutor, I guess. And so, yeah, the first episode, we're kind of introduced to each of the girls. They each have a different personality, that sort of thing. And then the second episode that I saw, basically one of the girls, she's like the most quiet and shy girl. She always has like these headphones on. She always talks like really quietly. Basically, it was about him finding one of her interests that she's like really embarrassed to admit. And it's about him, trying to show that I am like serious about wanting to teach you guys. And it's about him kind of bonding with her, which is interesting. And so, yeah, so far I've really enjoyed the series. Like I said, it's very different from what you would expect. You'd expect it to just be all over the place, made full of like, like fan service and be like really over the top and ecchi and tropey. But instead, it's really down to earth. And it's really nice seeing how he talks to like the different sisters and gets used to them and stuff. And I don't know, I'm actually really excited to watch this, and I really recommend it. I think that, that mystery of who he's gonna marry, hopefully it doesn't follow the cliche where first girl is best girl or whatever. That would kind of suck. So hopefully, it's a little better than that. But I don't know. Even then, I guess even if it falls into that trope, as long as the series develops in a way where that girl feels like she deserves to be like the best girl or whatever, so be it, but I don't know. It's the kind of thing that, check it out, see if you guys like it. It's called the Quintessential Quintuplets, and I really recommend it. I think it is really good so far, so. Moving away from anime, I did not watch any new TV shows this week, unfortunately. Actually, no, that's a lie. There is a TV show that I watched, I'm sorry. However, I don't want to talk about it just yet, because instead I'm hoping to release a review next week. Sorry about that. Sorry for lying. There's a show I watched. It's a show I talked about, a few times as news, and I finally sat down and watched it. And yeah, I hopefully want to release the review first, and then I'll talk about it on the podcast. So yeah. And I also watched a movie, interestingly enough, and it was a documentary on Netflix. And it's a movie called Fyre, The Greatest Party That Never Happened. And I don't even know what to say. I don't know where to start. Basically what happened, there's this podcast I like to listen to, and one of the guys on the podcast was talking about the Fyre Festival and this documentary. And so he was describing it, and I was like, all right, I just got to watch this for myself. And I did. And so, I don't know, starting from the beginning, I don't know how many of you remember the Fyre Festival that happened in 2017, but basically the Fyre Festival was this big, was supposed to be this huge like musical festival event thing, and it was run by Ja Rule and this guy who his name's Billy McFarland, who he's like head of like Fyre Media or whatever. It's like this app and this whole entertainment thing, whatever. Basically though, Ja Rule and this guy Billy teamed up, and they said they were going to have their own music festival. And it was going to be on some, island in the Bahamas. And it was supposed to be this luxurious event with, I don't know, it was supposed to be super luxurious. You know, there was supposed to be like the best food, the best housing. It was supposed to be like a beautiful island with like beautiful models, and there was going to be all these musical performances, and it was supposed to be like the best thing ever. And supposedly, you know, the one 2017 was supposed to be like the first of like 5 years in a row that was supposed to happen or whatever. And oh my God, how can I even describe it? Basically what happened is it was supposed to be super luxurious. A bunch of people paid a crap ton of money to go to this event, and everything went wrong. Basically, that guy, Billy, kind of lied about having a handle on things. And so there was no luxurious food. There was no luxurious housing. Instead, people were giving like bread with like a piece of cheese, and that was like supposed to be like lunch. And instead of like, you know, great housing, they were giving like emergency like refugee tents to live in. There was no running water, there was no bathrooms. I think like none of the musical performances like even showed up. Like it was a disaster, all right? Like it was crazy. And when I was listening to this podcast, they were talking about this documentary. And so I watched it. And wow, just the documentary goes so in depth in this event that I'm surprised nobody died. Like that's how bad it was. Like Ja Rule, he tries to, you know, like shake off the responsibility. You know, he tries to shrug it off, and he talks at one point about how like, oh my God, you know, I was tricked too, and I had no idea any of this was happening. Like, nah, man, screw you, all right? Ja Rule basically accidentally created a real life battle royale, all right? I don't mean like the battle royale as in like Fortnite, you know. No, I mean like the original like Japanese book where there's people like killing each other for survival. Like it was that close to actually happening, okay? Because like, if you watch the documentary and if you like do your research, like I said, there was no running water. People had to live in tents. And the worst part is that it wasn't even like orderly where, you know, like people got there and they realized they were tricked. It was more like they got to the beach and they were stranded, you know, waiting for like hours until finally they were told like, oh, you know, if you want to like sleep somewhere tonight, you basically have to go grab one of these tents to sleep in. And since people by then were paranoid from having like sat on the beach for like hours, they were fighting for supplies, all right? It was like survival of the fittest. Like they were running to tents, destroying the tents of people around them because they didn't want people next to them, because there was no like lighting and everything was pitch black. People were like stealing supplies from each other in the middle of the night, you know, that sort of stuff. Like it was terrible. Like, oh my God, it's so hard to describe. Like the fact there was no running water, once again, it's because that guy Billy just didn't plan anything, and because basically whenever somebody would like try to voice a concern of stuff that was missing, he would fire them, from what I kind of have pieced together. And so yeah, there was no running water. And I don't know if you guys have seen movies like Mad Max, but when there's no water, society breaks down. And so things were like a chaos. And of course, this guy Billy, he actually told, I'm not sure how the guy was I would need to like read up on it, but basically he told another guy that was like helping him run the show, he basically went and said, I need you to take one for the team, go down to like customs and blow that guy to get us water so people don't die. Like he legit was pushing this guy to go offer sexual services in exchange for water. And the sad part is that this guy actually almost did it. He actually, you know, cleaned himself up, headed down there. And when he went down there, the official told him like, yo, it's okay. Just pay us back when you need to. Like, it's okay. You know, you don't have to degrade yourself. It's fine. It's so, oh my God, guys, it's just hard to describe, but seriously, it's just like the most crazy thing ever. If you have a chance, check out the documentary. It's called Fyre, The Greatest Party That Never Happened, and that's on Netflix. I know there's also another documentary that came out at like almost the same time that's called Fyre, I think Fraud, something like that. And that one actually has interviews with the guy, Billy, what's his name? Billy McFarlane. But trust me, guys, this is just like, oh my God, it is just an event that when you look up like everything surrounding it, is just like the craziest thing ever, you know? Like when you read about this event, about all these millennials, you know, stuck on a beach, almost going into Lord of the Flies mode because they need to like survive because, you know, they're freaking out that they don't have all like the stuff they were promised. Like it's nuts, right? But it's super entertaining. So yeah, check it out. I definitely recommend the documentary. It's really good. And as for Ja Rule, I don't know how he didn't go to jail. Like, that's bullshit. Like, the fact that Billy went to jail and Ja Rule, like I said, just shrugged it all off and acted like he's a victim, like, that's crazy, man. Like, he should be in jail, but whatever. I mean, he's irrelevant anyway, so I don't know. Finally, moving on to video games, I finally got to sit down and play Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes. In fact, I actually beat the game. And yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people have been really rough on the game, but I actually really enjoyed it. Does it have its flaws? Yes. Like, there's some things that I can understand why people don't like it. Like, I think that some of the environments are kind of boring. You know, there's not really much going on. I think the decision to have over-the-top and side-scrolling camera angles, you know, it is kind of weird because, I don't know, everything just seems really like zoomed out and you can't even really see like the cool shirts you put on, you know, Travis and Batman. Like, I thought that was really weird. But I don't know. Everything about the game I honestly really liked. Like, I think the storyline is great. Even though, you know, it's not No More Heroes 3. I think there's a lot of like references, and there's even like this throwaway line that kind of tells you what Travis has been up to since the second game. So I thought that was really interesting. Of course, at the end of the game, you kind of get this thing that kind of hints at a No More Heroes 3 and what, you know, that might be. So I thought that was really good. I think seeing Travis's character progression was great. He's definitely, you know, as the games have progressed, he's grown as a character. You know, he's tired of like his life, but, you know, he's kind of learned to embrace it and have like a different mindset about it, which is interesting. Badman was an interesting character, even though we don't really get too much about him. I thought that he was still really interesting based on what we like do know about him and how he like cares about his daughter and stuff. And I'm definitely interested to see if he plays a bigger part in No More Heroes 3, you know? I think that'd be cool. Let's see. I liked the references and the meta humor. I know a lot of people, you know, don't like that sort of thing. Some people think it's a little over the top, but I really liked it, you know? I thought all the references to, you know, other games was great. I thought the way that characters from other Suda51 properties, like a bunch of different characters from like the Silver Ward and the Silver Case, the 25th Ward, Killer is Dead, Shadows of the Damned, you know, stuff like that. Different characters make appearances, and so I thought like that was really fun. I thought that all the references to retro games was cool. Like there's these pamphlets you can read that give you like cheat codes, and they look like old school game manuals. I thought that was fun. I thought that, you know, every time you start the death drive, the fact that it does the, you know, death drive, the way you would have like the Sega thing, I thought like that was really fun. And so, I don't know, I really enjoyed the game, you know? Like even combat. I know a lot of people are complaining about the combat and they say that it's really repetitive and, you know, I don't know. I mean, if you've ever played No More Heroes game, that's what the games are, you know? It's just hacking and slashing through a bunch of enemies until you reach the boss. And that's what it felt like here. You know, you hack and slash your way through a bunch of enemies. And honestly, I don't know. I mean, the fact that you have all these like skill chips that you can change out, I think gives you more control than ever. So honestly, I never got bored of the fighting. I thought it was really cool. And I thought that the way the different game worlds change it up, you know, with like light platforming and, you know, like light platforming and like the motorcycle races, you know, Tron style. I thought that was interesting. I thought that helped shake things up. So I don't know. While the game definitely has flaws, and while I definitely understand that's not what people were exactly looking for, you know, the next time they heard from Travis, I think that as a spin-off, I think it was fun. I enjoyed it for what it was. And I don't know. I mean, for anyone worried, No More Heroes 3 is hinted to be on the way. You know, I'm pretty sure that Suda's gonna, you know, make a third game. And I don't know, as long as it does fix some of the issues like the camera angles and I don't know, just, you know, like small quality of life stuff, I think the game will be fine, you know? So I really enjoyed the game. Like, would I recommend it? I think that if you're a fan of the No More Heroes series, I think you'll enjoy the game. I think you'll enjoy like the storyline and the references and all that stuff. I think you'll like it, because you'll probably like all that stuff. If you're not a fan of the game, then I don't know, maybe hold off a little bit. Maybe wait for the game to be cheaper since, maybe $30 feels like too much for some people. But, overall, I recommend it. But I do say, be careful and, do your research before you play the game. So, with that being said, that brings me to the end of my week. So let's transition over to the news. And the first news story that I have to talk about is a pretty sad one because I don't know, ever since I started this podcast, like around that time, I feel like there's just been a lot of stuff happening that just kind of keeps reminding me that YouTube is going in a totally different direction from what I grew up with, I guess you can say. And so the first news story is all about how apparently Machinima erased all of its videos without any warning. All right? So for anyone who, maybe didn't know, Machinima was this, what would you call it? It's like this multi-channel network that back during like the early days of YouTube, it was like a big hit because it had all sorts of channels with different like gameplay and like all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, they were really big for quite a while. I know that like in recent years, they basically went bankrupt. And so there wasn't really a lot of activity from them. But basically what seems to have happened is that they merged with, I think their name is Otter Media, which is a division of AT&T. And basically it seems like because of the merger, I guess AT&T just wants Machinima to start fresh. And it seems like that's the reason they just removed, like all the videos, start fresh, new content, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it just really sucks because number one, a lot of creators didn't get any warning and they don't know where they stand now. Like if they have contracts with Machinima, they don't know what they're going to do now because, are they part of the merging? Are they getting fired? What's the deal? And number two, it really sucks for all the people who were fans of the different channels. Because if there's channels that maybe, they're, even if they were not putting out content anymore, if there's videos, such as from series like Two Best Friends Play, Teenage Pokemon, RB and the Chief, stuff like that, I'm reading it right now, like you can't watch those videos anymore because they're just gone. So, I mean, you have to hope that maybe they got backed up somewhere, but if they didn't, then tough luck. And so, I don't know, like I said, it's just really sad to hear because Machinima, I remember it being so big, as I was, like I said, like growing up with YouTube. I remember, there was like a lot of different like cool channels attached to it. There was all sorts of content to watch. And so seeing that number one, they went bankrupt, and then like number two, they're back now, but they've like gotten rid of all their content. I don't know, it's just really depressing. And like once again, it's just another nail in the coffin that just shows that the YouTube we know and love is dead or like dying, whatever, like YouTube is not what it used to be 10 years ago. And just getting more and more reminders of that is just so depressing. It just seems like more and more things that, at least I know and love keep getting killed off. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to share that with you guys. I mean, I don't know if any of you have fond memories of Machinima or any of that, but, if so, I don't know, pour one out, I guess. But yeah. Moving on to something a little more positive, Nintendo had an indie highlights, like little event earlier this week. And yeah, it was pretty cool. Apparently Nintendo of Europe, they had the little indie highlights, and in the link in the description below, there will be a video that shows the different video games that got announced. Some of them are out now, some of them are coming soon. Reading off the list of games that had information talked about, there was Crosscode, there was Double Kick Heroes, Forager, Goat Simulator, Inmost, SteamWorld Quest, Unruly Heroes, Wargroove, and When Ski Lifts Go Wrong. And I'll admit, not too many of them stood out to me at the moment. Maybe it's because, they didn't get like that much time on screen. I mean, it is a pretty short little video. But yeah, for anyone who loves, the indies that keep getting put onto the Switch, there you go. There's more indies on the way. Like I said, there's not anything that I saw that I would say really stood out to me, but that doesn't mean that, farther down the line, there won't be anything that I might fall in love with. Like for instance, When Ski Lifts Go Wrong, it's out now, and it looked kind of interesting. It looks like it's like a thing where you basically make like your own tracks and you kind of like, play them or whatever. So I mean, maybe I'll check that out in the future. Goat Simulator, it's out now so far. It's out now with all the DLC. I remember playing that back on the PC at some point. I mean, maybe I'll try that out. That could be fun. So yeah, like I said, guys, if you want more information, the link in the description below will have not just the video, but it has all the games with the release dates. And so, check it out. There might be something that catches your attention. Speaking of catches your attention, this story caught my attention. It's apparently about how Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is a fighting game coming for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Now, while the video doesn't really show much, it's more of a teaser that kind of just shows, Power Rangers standing around and then looking at each other. And then it shows Tommy, the original Green Ranger, shows him, and then it says to pre-order the game because it's coming soon or whatever. I don't know. I'm interested in it, honestly. Will it be good? I don't know. Unfortunately, they don't show much gameplay, but I don't know. I've always kind of had a thing for Power Rangers. I kind of grew up with it back in the day. I remember watching the original series, and yeah, I don't know. I think Power Rangers is pretty cool. It's one of those things that's been around forever and probably will continue to be around forever. And I always just find it kind of interesting. I think that, a fighting game sounds like it could be fun. And like I said, I don't really know what to say. There's not much info, but I like Power Rangers. I think that a fighting game sounds like a great idea. I'm actually surprised that we don't have, more Power Rangers games. I feel like there's a untapped potential there. And so, I want to keep an eye out for that. So if that sounds exciting to you, look forward to it. Moving on, the next story is about how Space Jam 2 is reportedly going to start filming this summer. So for anyone who doesn't know, Space Jam, movie that came out back in the 90s, starring Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes, that sort of thing. They've been saying that they're going to do a sequel to it for a long time now, all right? They've been saying for years now that supposedly LeBron James is connected to the project, and for the longest time they kept saying that, but there was no clear indication. Then I want to say it was around last year, maybe the year before, they finally said that yeah, supposedly LeBron James will star, and that I think I'm reading it right here. Ryan Coogler, who was the director of Black Panther, he's attached to the project. They said that a year or two ago. And yeah, it seems like now they're finally gonna get to actually making the movie. And if you want my opinion on it, I'm not looking forward to it. Number one, I'm not too fond of LeBron James. He's a good basketball player, sure, but I just don't think he has the charisma that Michael Jordan has, which is funny because I wouldn't even say Michael Jordan himself is that charismatic, but Michael Jordan in this movie made sense because when this movie came out, Michael Jordan was at his peak. And everybody knows who Michael Jordan is, right? So I don't know. LeBron James just doesn't seem, despite being a good player, he doesn't seem like that as iconic as Michael Jordan to me. And then number two, I just hate all these reboots / remakes they're making all the time. I don't know. It just sounds like a cash grab to me. Honestly, despite people saying that the original Space Jam isn't even a good movie, I love that movie. I think that the way, it uses the Looney Tunes, uses Michael Jordan and mixes them together and tells this story of the Looney Tunes having to play basically for their lives. I don't know. I actually really enjoyed it. And the original movie had great music, and I don't know, I just don't know if a movie nowadays can pull that off, can it pull off a fun story, and can it have another iconic soundtrack and stuff? I don't think so, I don't know, I feel like a lot of remakes these days fail because too many people are just trying to cash in on nostalgia, but they don't really know how to which direction to steer the project. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. I just think it sounds like a cash grab. I think that LeBron James is not charismatic enough to lead. And yeah, I will probably check it out at some point just out of curiosity, but am I excited for it? No. Are any of you guys excited for it? Honestly, from what I've seen, I think you guys probably stand by me, but if you think differently, let me know. Moving on, the next story that I want to talk about is that the Punisher showrunner apparently wants to see a Blade TV show. So yeah, the guy's name is Steve Littlefoot, and I don't know if he's the guy who's who's directed The Punisher, or he's just helping create it, whatever. But the point is that he says that he would love to see Blade as a TV show. For anyone who doesn't know, Blade is a Marvel Comics character that is half vampire, and his whole thing is that he hunts down other vampires. I don't know if he hunts down other creatures. He might. I'm not too familiar with him, but I know his main gimmick is that he's a vampire who's a vampire hunter. And back in, I want to say the late 90s. I'm not too sure. I want to say it was the late 90s, early 2000s. There were 3 different movies of Blade starring Wesley Snipes. And, this was back in the day before superhero movies were really a thing. And for the time, I guess they were pretty good. I know that at least the first 2, I think, were really well received. And I know people enjoyed Wesley Snipes', performance. And, that's basically as good as superhero movies got back in the day. And so this guy says that he would love to see a, new version with Blade. And I do think that's an interesting idea, because I think Marvel Netflix shows are cool in the sense that I don't know, the less superhero-y they are, the better, I think The Punisher works great, because even though he's a Marvel Comics character, he feels less like a superhero and more like a vigilante, doing his own thing. Same thing with Daredevil. Even though he does have a power technically, it feels more like a vigilante, guy running around defeating, criminals and stuff, that sort of thing. And so even though I do think it's a cool concept, seeing a vampire hunter hunting vampires, that sort of thing. The thing is that with all the Marvel Netflix shows getting canceled, even the article itself says it, the chances of the show getting made is very slim, because think about it, if successful stuff like Daredevil and Jessica Jones and did Jessica Jones get canceled? I don't remember, but I know Daredevil got canceled. I know that I know Luke Cage got canceled, and those were doing really good. So if that stuff got canceled, I doubt that a Blade show's gonna come out. But it is an interesting concept, I guess. But yeah, honestly, I don't really see it happening, especially, I don't know how many of you know, but that Disney streaming service is right around the corner. So I doubt that Disney would want to, create a new show, put it on Netflix, with their app coming up. So I don't know. It's one of those things where what could have been, I guess, but Speaking of getting a little too much, this next story is about how apparently The Simpsons is close to getting renewed for season 31 and 32. So basically, if you read the article, it talks about how The Simpsons right now is in the middle of season 30. And though people thought that that would maybe be the end of the series, because come on, 30 seasons, that's 30 years on TV. I think they're definitely past episode 700, I think. It looks no. It looks like Fox is interested in renewing it for 2 more seasons. And apparently that would put the show through until spring 2021, which is crazy. And it's especially crazy because The Simpsons has not been good for the last 10 seasons, season 1 through 10 were the golden years. I would say season 10 through 20, well, not perfect. I would say they were still, pretty good. And then from 20 to 30, they've just been really downhill. And so I don't know, man, the fact this show keeps getting renewed is just crazy. I think you should let the show just die already. All right. It's been on the show it's been on the air for 30 years. I don't know. It feels like it's just the shell of its former self. I think they should let it go, but if Fox wants to renew it, they'll renew it. The thing that is interesting though, is that it says in the article that even if Fox renews it though, since Disney is in the middle of buying Fox, they think that Disney might, what would you say? They might, cancel the show anyway. So that's interesting. It says right here, I'm trying to read the part exactly. It says Disney might well opt out to cancel the show due to a quirk of syndication and rerun rights. The Simpsons' original syndication deal was open-ended in length, a practice that used to be fairly common in the industry. Fox likely would have never made the deal if they knew the show would last this long, and it doesn't become invalid until after The Simpsons stops airing new episodes. In short, Disney could stand to make a ton of cash by canceling The Simpsons and cutting new syndication deals. So yeah, that's kind of weird actually. So while usually stuff involving money just feels very greedy and it's stuff that I would usually be against, in this case it's weird because I'm almost rooting for Disney to be greedy and go for the money, you know? Because I don't know, I mean, if it's whether keep the Simpsons on the air or cancel them, you know, let them have their dignity finally by letting them die, but Disney gets more money, I mean, oddly enough, I kind of side with Disney and I kind of hope Disney gets greedy and cancels it. Like, it's a weird, you know, universe, but yeah, I mean, I actually kind of hope Disney does cancel it, so. Moving on, I thought this article was really interesting. Basically, it's talking about how there's this show called Genlock, and how apparently it's this Rooster Teeth anime that is starring Michael B. Jordan, Dakota Fanning, David Tennant, and Macy Williams. And so, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, Rooster Teeth is this like entertainment juggernaut that not only do they have like their own website, not only do they have a bunch of like channels under them on YouTube, I mean, they have all sorts of shows. I mean, in the past on my channel, I've covered Camp, which is like an animation, you know, made by them. I know they also make Ruby, for instance. You know, that's an anime, you know, technically that they make. And so, yeah, apparently they're really close to releasing a new anime called Genlock. And so basically what the article talks about, there's a trailer and you see, you know, the different characters voiced by like Jordan, Tennant, Fanning, Williams, all those people. And yeah, it's this like very like futuristic show about basically like mecha pilots, you know, going to mecha battles and stuff. And I don't know. The visuals are kind of rough because it uses like CGI, you know, same as like Ruby. You know, if you've ever seen Ruby, it has like that kind of like CGI style. But I don't know, what it says it's about looks interesting. I don't know. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I'd like to check it out at some point, see if it's any good. But, you know, until then, at least they have some big voice actors behind it. So, you know, that's also really interesting. So, I don't know. If anyone's interested, it's called Genlock. There is a trailer, you know, in the news story I'm linking. And yeah, I mean, if you watch other Rooster Teeth stuff, then, you know, maybe you'll enjoy this. Speaking of anime, I talked a while back about Trigger's next big project called Promare, which everyone thought at first was going to be an anime series, but then they revealed it's actually an anime film. And yeah, the news story that I'm linking, you know, today is about how we got more information about Promare. So we get a trailer, we get some images, you know, of the characters, so that's kind of cool. We get some information about the anime. Basically, the anime film is going to be about, it's like futuristic firefighters, almost, that use like mechs to fight fires, which is weird. Like, that's an interesting concept. But yeah, let me see, I'm trying to read the part. Yeah, like the main character, the one that looks like Kamina with like the spiky blue hair, his name is Gallo Thymos. And yeah, he's a new member of the Burning Rescue Team. He's still in his teens, but has more attitude than anyone. He is a reckless meathead who runs headlong to the scene of a fire. And so yeah, I mean, if you kind of look at his attire, I kind of see the influence of like firefighters. Like the gloves he wears look firefighter-y. The pants, even though they're like stylized, they do kind of look like big ol' firefighter pants. And so that's interesting. And I mean, if you keep reading, you can see the other characters. I mean, they seem cool enough. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love stuff made by Trigger. I think that, you know, with a few exceptions, they've made some really good stuff. They know how to, like, you know, get you hype. So I'm pretty excited, you know, I really want to see where this goes. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it has that, you know, classic Trigger escalation as you keep watching. And I'm trying to see if there's a release date. I don't think there is. I think it just says 2019. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's supposed to get a May theatrical debut. And then after that, you know, hopefully we get it everywhere else internationally. But yeah, until then, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like I say, I really enjoy Trigger works. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So if you also love Trigger anime, there you go. That's something to look forward to, you know, hopefully coming up soon. So finally, the last story that I want to talk about is that Hayao Miyazaki, Mr. Anime Was a Mistake himself, is apparently back, and it says here, Hayao Miyazaki and son reportedly working on 2 new Studio Ghibli movies. So yeah, it's really funny. I mean, even though he keeps saying that he's gonna retire, I think he's retired a couple of times. I'm not too sure. I know for sure he's supposedly retired in 2013. Yeah, he's back making more movies. Apparently, he's gonna release this movie called How Do You Live that is expected to be released around 2020. And after that, if you read farther down, it says that his son is also working on a movie, and I guess he's helping him with that. And yeah, I mean, while I feel bad for the old guy because, I mean, he definitely, isn't young anymore, and it probably sucks having to spend so much time working on these projects. It's probably like a lot of stress and a lot of work. I'm glad that he's back. Studio Ghibli movies are awesome, and the fact that he keeps making them is like great. The more Studio Ghibli movies he can give us, the better. Let's see here. Is there anything else of note? I don't really see anything else. How Do You Live? All I know is that if you look it up, apparently it's based on a 1937 book of the same name. So apparently it's going to be about this like young man and how throughout his life that book is like a recurring theme. So that sounds interesting. But yeah, besides that, I don't think there's a lot of details about the movie that he's making or his son. But hey, if you like Studio Ghibli movies, more are on the way. Mr. Anime was a mistake himself. Can't seem to, stay away from work. So like I said, the more movies he can give us, the better, I guess. So look forward to that. That being said, that brings us to the end of another news week. So as usual, hopefully there was something you guys found to be interesting, entertaining, something new you guys learned, that sort of thing. And so with that being said, it's now time to transition over to the content creator spotlight. And this week's content creator that I want to talk about is a guy that I want to talk about for a bit, but he had kind of gone on a break and hadn't really released any new videos. So I was a little apprehensive about talking about him. But, in the recent week or two, he's released a few videos. And so, hey, more stuff to watch. And so I thought it was a perfect time to talk about him. And I am, of course, talking about Zubatticus, like Zubat, from Pokemon. And Zubatticus, currently sitting at 183 subscribers, is this really cool video game reviewer. Similar to me and how I try to do video game reviews, he does reviews on all sorts of video games. Whether, they're more indie or they're, more mainstream games, he does reviews on games. And so, for instance, just reading the list of, stuff he's recently done, he did a review on Celeste. He did a review on Valkyria Chronicles 4. Before his, big old break, he did a review on Detroit Become Human and God of War. And yeah, I just think his videos are really awesome. I think the, this perspective he brings to them is really good. I feel like he's very critical, and the humor he brings is very funny too. I feel like he has this dry wit that's really entertaining to me, very sarcastic. And so yeah, I just think his reviews are really good. I think that the length is good. He never goes for too long. And yeah, I mean, if you guys remember a while back, I talked about Mighty Nifty, how I think he does really good reviews. He's actually teamed up with Mighty Nifty before, to do reviews. So I think that's, an indication of a certain group, and their quality. So I think that's really awesome. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, he does reviews. His reviews are awesome. When I look at them, it always inspires me to try to do better on my reviews. I mean, I feel like that happens a lot when I see a really awesome content creator. And so yeah, he's my content creator for this week. And Zubatticus, if you're listening, I think your videos are awesome. I think, like I said, the perspective you bring and the humor is really great. I look forward to seeing more of your stuff. I know you took kind of a big break after Detroit Become Human, but hopefully you pump out some more stuff. I'm excited to see more of your perspective on things. And for anyone listening, give him support, guys. Give him your love. He currently has 183 subscribers, and I think he easily deserves more. So if you enjoy my sort of reviews or, reviews in general because you like getting perspectives on and opinions on video games, I would say subscribe to him because he is definitely worth following. And so yeah, show him some love, guys. Alrighty, and that brings us to the end of another podcast. That is one more in the bag. As I said at the beginning, I'm trying to expand the podcast to other platforms. So really quick here at the end, I thought I would kind of, shill myself a little bit. So, once again, my name is Wannabe Reviewer. I don't know where you're listening to this, but, you can always find me on my YouTube channel, Wannabe Reviewer, where I do reviews usually on Wednesdays of different sorts of media. You can also find me on social media such as Tumblr and Twitter. I think Tumblr, I usually just, repost art and like funny video game stuff that I see. But if you want to follow me there, I think I'm Wannabe Reviewer, same as my YouTube channel. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at wannabe_review. And there you can get updates to when I release videos, as well as, retweets from artists and news stories and all sorts of good stuff. So if you want to follow me, you can check me out there. And once again, if you want to follow the podcast on places besides YouTube, you can check it out on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. And with that being said, my name is Wannabe Reviewer. I will catch you guys next time.